Welcome to the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John Tulac.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Professionals of the Inland Empire, affectionately known as PI. I'm John Tulac, international business attorney located in Clermont, California, and it's my pleasure to bring these episodes featuring top professionals in a variety of fields who live and work in the Inland Empire. And today I have two distinguished guests, Veronica Foster from Trust Properties and Mike Wallace. They are both connected with real estate. One is a residential real estate broker, and the other one is in the business of arranging for your mortgages and making sure that you get the money you need from the right place and the right terms so that you can buy what you want. And so today, welcome to Veronica and Mike. And ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy a slice of pie. Here we go. Veronica, let's start with you. Tell us who you are, how you got to where you are, and what you do.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, John. Like I mentioned, this is the first podcast I've ever been on, so it's an honor and it's exciting to be here. I got my start with real estate about 10 years ago. I started in regular residential real estate. And then about 5 years ago, I started with the company I'm currently with now called Trust Properties USA. We specialize in probate and trust sales. We have offices all over California and Florida, and I'm based in Riverside. So we have a unique approach in which we try to champion the families that are dealing with these probate or trust sales. We help them navigate everything that they're dealing with in regards to the property. So sometimes that's full renovations, dealing with personal property, vehicles, you name it. We have the vendors and the resources to help them navigate this complicated task. So it's always unique. There's always, every family has a different situation and a different story. So we just try to be their number one resource to take care of it for them.
So in doing that, are you primarily working then with the estate and the heirs in terms of what to do with the family home?
Exactly, yeah. So we work primarily with the family, and then we partner with, of course, with their estate attorney, CPAs, and their, group of professionals that take care of these things.
So how is that different from just a regular everyday sale of a residential property?
Yeah, so there are, different processes. Sometimes the court's involved if there's a court confirmation that's required, different forms and different disclosures that are required than you would when you are selling your own home that you live in. A lot of times administrators live out of state, or they're just not local, or they don't have the resources to deal with their loved one's property. So that's where we really, come in to be their representative here locally where the property is.
Okay, and so you're talking about a team of people who have other specialties that tie into handling that estate or the probate of that estate. So there are actually far more interactions than there would be in just an everyday sale of a property, right?
Absolutely. It definitely takes a team. There's a team of professionals typically that's involved. We're usually, we're the primary contact when it comes to the property itself, to the home and the logistics of that, or moving things, getting the home ready. But yes, there's always a team with estate professionals, CPAs, things of that nature where they're going to need some more advice beyond just selling the home, what happens before and after as well.
Okay, and then if it is in probate, the sale has to go to the judge for a final approval to allow for the sale, if I'm not mistaken. Does that mean that you have to testify sometimes in a probate hearing, or you can do that all by written submission?
Yeah, so it depends on, there's two different methods with a probate. Either if the client or the administrator has full authority, and they don't require court confirmation for the sale itself. They can conduct the sale, close escrow within, normal time frame, say 30 days. Then after that, then yes, they do have additional hearings to close out the probate case itself. But escrow can close, the house can sell, and then they can move on to finishing and closing their probate case. If they don't have full authority, sometimes if there's disputes in the family, if the only beneficiary is a minor, things like that, where the court would need to approve the sale first, then that'll take place, and a hearing needs to happen before you can close escrow and move on to those next hearings.
So, right, established processes for any set of circumstances.
Yep, exactly. So having a realtor who knows the difference, who isn't selling a home out of the bounds of what your probate administration should be, that's things like that are important to know who you're working with, or that they know what they're working with.
Okay. And so do you ever represent someone who's a buyer and you're dealing with a probate situation? It would seem to me that gives your buyer an advantage to have someone like you helping navigate in the system.
Yeah, sometimes we have buyers that approach us directly when we have the listing. So once in a while, but a lot of times buyers still like to have their own representation in a sale. So more often than not, they have their own agents, but once in a while.
Okay. So, Mike, let's turn to you for the give us the backstory and the current story of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John, for having me. It's good to see you again. And like Veronica, this is my first podcast as well. So I think we're all doing this together.
Absolutely. If you've been on Zoom, you've been on sort of like a podcast. All you have to do is talk to us.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so I took a bit of an unconventional route into the mortgage industry. I graduated with a degree in business economics with an accounting emphasis and went straight into public accounting. I was a financial statement auditor and consultant at various CPA firms in Orange County for about 8 years. Left the CPA world to become the assistant controller of a publicly traded company down in Orange County. Did that for a few years, and my wife and I got married, moved back to the Inland Empire area, and I couldn't handle the commute down to Orange County anymore. And so I started looking for positions, CFO controller positions up in the Inland Empire in East San Gabriel Valley. And my father-in-law actually invited me to lunch, and he was a CPA who started a mortgage and real estate brokerage in 1988, and he was looking to retire and didn't really have any succession planning. He knew that I may be interested in kind of pivoting my career, and he said, if you're interested, I'll teach you everything I know about the mortgage and real estate industry, and you can come in and you can manage the business, and I'm going to take a step back and start working part-time, and we'll do a transition, and I'm going to retire, and you can run with the business. And it's been wonderful. So I've been in mortgage and real estate for about 10 years now.
So how does someone benefit by coming to you for setting up the ideal mortgage, as opposed to the multiple tools that everybody on the internet promises you will get you the fabulous mortgage? What's the secret sauce difference?
Well, so not specifically speaking about me, I'll start by speaking about the broker channel, the wholesale residential mortgage brokerage channel, where anybody can go online and do a Google search and get a couple thousand results of online lenders or banks, credit unions, or of course they can walk into their local branch of where they hold their checking and savings. But the wholesale mortgage brokerage channel, for most scenarios, offers lower rates, faster turn times, and additional loan options that aren't available through most banks and credit unions. So I can get somebody a better rate than they can get themselves by going through a retail channel or an online channel. And then also I can get it done faster with less headache and have more options for self-employed borrowers, people buying investment properties, just additional tools that aren't really available through banks, credit unions, or direct lenders.
Okay, so that's clearly an advantage. You end up with a better product as a result of using someone like yourself who's an expert in finding that. Is that a matter of personal networking relationship, or is that just the strength of the system that you're able to tap into, and it's more impersonal?
So that aspect is specifically the broker channel, specifically the residential wholesale broker channel. I think what sets me apart is my background in high finance, being a CPA, having a lot of experience when it comes to business, economics, accounting, finance, and tax, and being able to kind of take complex situations and break them down into sort of layman's terms or plain English, particularly for I don't want to say, not sophisticated, but, first-time buyers who aren't familiar with the process and aren't familiar with, the industry lingo, where a lot of times we kind of get caught up in using the proper terminology, but it's like speaking a different language to somebody who hasn't been through the process before.
Sure. I mean, it would be daunting if you have no prior experience whatsoever to try and buy a house on your own
Oh,
or get a
absolutely.
mortgage on your own. That's why we need people like you, especially
Absolutely.
if we're brand new to the process. But I don't know anybody who's experienced who tries to do it themselves either.
Yeah, and I can say, because of a lot of my professional network are CPAs, people that I came up with, and I've been in the trenches in audit rooms working long hours. That sometimes the most difficult client is the one who's been highly successful in a different industry, because a lot of times when you're dealing with doctors, lawyers, CPAs, they know so much and they're used to being the expert in the room, regardless of the room, and they don't necessarily want to listen when it comes to industry specific niches like mortgage.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So I want to turn our attention now to the Inland Empire itself and the residential market here. What makes this the way it is? What makes it special or what makes it different than other parts of Southern California? Veronica, I'll go back to you first on that one.
Yeah, and I will say, even though I don't work with buyers often, I'm usually on the listing side or on the selling side. It's super important to work with, lenders or mortgage brokers like Mike, people who are experienced and know what they're doing, because, that's usually my first call when we get offers is to the lender to find out, if they've done their homework on the buyer, if they know, who their client is well enough to ensure a successful escrow. So working with people like Mike is super important. I've seen, I don't know about you, but I still have seen a pretty slow market. I know rates just went down last week again, but buyer demand just hasn't been, as great as we had hoped. What have you seen?
So for me specifically, personally, I want to first point out that even in local news, if you're tuning into KCAL 9 or your 8 p.m. local news, most of what gets reported is national data when it comes to real estate. So you may be watching a Los Angeles feed, but they're looking at averages across 50 states, and so what I've seen is, if you read the headlines, you'll hear there are 500,000 properties, 500,000 more properties for sale than buyers looking to buy them. That's true nationally, but what I've seen is, when you have a strong buyer's market, you're going to see that in Las Vegas, Phoenix, Austin, Texas, Florida, Northern Virginia. I will echo what Veronica's saying in that I have seen the Inland Empire, the East San Gabriel Valley slowing down. The days on market is stretching out, and the amount of inventory on the market is increasing. But where I live in the foothills of the East San Gabriel Valley, Glendora, San Dimas, Laverne, Clermont, I'm not seeing a strong buyer's market. I'm seeing more of a neutral market where good homes priced correctly are still selling quickly, and homes that have some deferred maintenance and need a lot of work are sitting on the market longer, and those sellers are needing to negotiate either repairs, credits, or price decreases.
Yeah, my experience, at least in looking at Clermont, is how a price that is good, that home goes like that. If the pricing is bad, it'll sit a little longer, but it's going to sell still relatively quickly. And anything on the low end is gone before you can blink. So it's all about location, right? That's what they say in real estate: location, location, location. And dirt doesn't move except during the Dust Bowl from Oklahoma to Kansas. Uh, so it's where you are that determines the market, not the national rate. So I'm glad you pointed that out. You know, we are the ninth or 10th largest standard statistical metropolitan area in the United States, which nobody seems to know in Southern California, even the folks who live and work out here. But that simply means we're big. Not just in terms of geographics and the number of square miles in Riverside and San Bernardino County and a little bit of LA County, but also in terms of the number of people we have out here. And so to what extent does this look like a big market? And what makes it different? My impression is, and you're the ones who are hands-on with this, but my impression is that the typical buyers out here who have jobs are commuting to those jobs as opposed to largely working within the Inland Empire. So how does that impact the home they buy and where they buy it? Obviously, the distance and the freeways would be factors. What else?
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
yeah, like Mike said, I mean, those areas like Clermont, Ontario, cities where it's going to be convenient for those commuters or people who work nearby. Those markets, I agree, absolutely. Those markets are doing much better than, say, I cover all of the Inland Empire, so the desert markets where you would find vacation homes or the mountains, those are the areas that we're really seeing price drops plummet and things sitting a lot longer. So I guess those niches of where vacation homes are, which even in the Inland Empire we have those markets in the desert and the mountains. So I think just those rural areas are going to be seeing the biggest impact first, before your Clermonts and Ontarios and Rancho Cucamonga.
Do you think that will happen before there's a next true recession, or because I see a lot more homes on the market in the vacation scene up in the mountains, or will that really go full tilt boogie when the recession finally hits?
Well,
I think,
go ahead, Veronica.
so
Sorry.
you go ahead, Mike.
No, I think we're already seeing it, to be honest with you. I think that, um, during the first year of the pandemic, we saw a lot of people not wanting to stay in hotels, and a lot of people. I mean, who doesn't want a vacation home, whether it's up in Big Bear or Wrightwood or out at Lake Havasu or wherever you like to vacation. And the pandemic really created an opportunity for people to purchase those homes and then convert them to short-term rentals when they weren't using them and turning it into a cash flowing asset. What I'm seeing, and Veronica, I'd like to get your thoughts on this too, is that those markets just became super saturated, and now people are, going back to hotels. They're realizing that maybe it's not such a great deal after the cleaning fees and all of the other add-ons, and so they're not booking them, and now they're having to carry the cost of ownership of those vacation homes. And there's also local jurisdictions and rule changes that have been coming through with, if you live next to a hotel or a vacation home, sometimes that ends up in a party, and the people, the residents, the permanent residents, are the only ones who are able to vote in those local jurisdictions. And so you see, angry people going to city council meetings, and then the local leadership trying to limit the exposure of how many licenses they're going to give out or how many days per year those can be rented out in a short-term rental.
That's a good point. Yeah, the Airbnb and the VRBO, these short-term rentals, if you have too many of them, then nobody makes any money, and that's what I certainly see up in Big Bear and in Lake Arrowhead, Crestline area, which is why I think a lot of those homes are for sale. So it's not necessarily,
Correct.
economic hard times. It's that, I'm not up there and I'm not getting enough income off of it to justify not being up there and using it as a vacation home. So
Mhm.
onto the market they go, and then that depresses the sale prices. They all sit. So
Correct.
it's like having your own mini recession, right?
Yeah, and it very well. I mean, the real estate industry is so big that it really can, you know, be a self-fulfilling prophecy and cause a recession just with too many homes going on the market at the same time.
Except in China, where they've got 47 million empty units, bigger than the population of Germany.
Well, I think they have a little more control over pricing and
Just a bit. Wasn't meant to be a real comparison, but I couldn't resist.
yeah.
So Veronica, what do you do in a situation where you're up against that kind of competition, and yet the probate court says, well, I need a sale, I need to get this estate closed. Are you the bearer of the bad news that you're not going to get what you want out of this, or are there any other workarounds for that sort of problem?
Oh, I mean, I wish we had a magic wand is usually, the solution many of us hope for. But yeah, I mean, we like whether it's a regular sale or if it's probate specific, our job is to be realistic and give true comps of what's going on in the market now, not what it was in the COVID era or what it was a year ago, because it's been such a volatile market even now. But yeah, we give them realistic pricing, and it's all about the price. There's no magic method, no amount of staging that's gonna, that's really gonna do the job better than pricing it correctly in this market. So that's what we try to do, is take that approach versus pricing it too high and then chasing the market like you see happen a lot of times. You see this idealistic number and then it sits for 6 months and then you end up losing, any potential buyers that you might have had at a good middle ground maybe. So.
Okay. So now we get to read the tea leaves, because the housing market is actually a leading indicator of where the economy may eventually go. And one of the other leading indicators, especially true for the Inland Empire, is that unemployment will start ticking up out here, affecting the commuters who get laid off first when they start trimming the sails. So I haven't seen much of that yet, but reading the tea leaves in terms of the housing market, where do you see things going in, let's say, the next 6 to 12 months? Veronica, I'll start with you. You get to wave your wand or a sorting hat or whatever
Yeah.
to
No,
prognosticate.
I agree with you guys. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where things go with unemployment rates, with the changes that we see, even on a national scale. I mean, obviously, we're going to be impacted by those too. So, even though rates have gone down a little bit, I still think that there's still some dust settling as far as pricing goes. Um, we prices are up over where they were last year, so I still think that there's still some room there where prices may continue to trend downward like they have been this year.
Okay. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you somewhat, partially about the commuters tend to be the first layoffs, but I would say that the employment economy has changed a little in that I'm seeing remote workers as the first to go rather
Okay.
than commuters. So I know there have been massive callbacks to no more work from home, no more hybrid. I know NASA and JPL went back full time, and a lot of those people moved out of state. So that's a very tough, how do you reconcile that? Do you sell your house, move back to Pasadena area or close enough to commute in? Or do you just kind of cut your losses and go somewhere else? Federal government also bringing a lot of people back. But as far as the housing market, I do still believe that we are undersupplied here in Southern California. I think that the Inland Empire specifically offers a great opportunity for people who have been priced out of higher price markets such as Orange County and Los Angeles. But I do think you're right, John. The challenge is that if they're moving out here from those areas and then trying to commute back in, it becomes a challenge of lifestyle. How much time each day are you going to spend on the road, the train, however it is that you're commuting, and how's that going to impact your standard of living?
Right. So our two big areas out here are obviously logistics and healthcare. So you have a lot of lower end jobs, salary wise and wage wise in healthcare, less so in logistics. There's a lot of, middle income jobs for logistics, including the truckers who move the stuff. So again, looking at it from a housing perspective, would the Inland Empire be better off if we had more affordable housing? Because we've got the room to build it, and the state is telling us to go vertical, and also for more high-end housing to attract the CEOs who might move their companies out here and create more diversity. Would these be good things for the IE if our housing market tilted in that direction out here?
I think there's a shortage, like you said, of affordable housing, just across the board. So I think that's the biggest issue. I've seen more and more where there's multiple borrowers applying, on a loan application or on an offer for a home. So I think it's going to be situations like that where I think the home pricing. So when I say the home prices may go down, I think it'll still level out a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a huge recession plummet like 2008, but I think leveling out so that there's more affordability there for the buyers that are looking for a home here, and multifamilies, in one property kind of thing.
Mike? What do you
Yeah,
think?
and I think to your point, John, would the Inland Empire be better off building more affordable housing? Well, for some, certainly. Or would the Inland Empire be better off, building mansions for CEOs and C-suite executives to try to attract different industries and higher paid professionals to relocate here? I think all of that is true, or certainly can be true. I think that takes a lot of time, relocating a company, an industry, and to build a community of 1.5 $2 million houses that executives and senior management are going to want to live in on half-acre lots is certainly not something that's done overnight, particularly depending on which city or county you're dealing with for permitting and tying everything in. But yeah, I think that there's a tremendous opportunity in the Inland Empire to attract industries, because we're in close proximity to very affluent areas, but there is an element of lower wages, lower cost of living. One thing that I personally would love to see is semiconductor manufacturing coming back to the United States. I think that's actually incredibly important to our nation's national security, and I would absolutely, if I had my dream, that would be all done in the Inland Empire.
That's not a dream that you have by yourself. There are others that are thinking along the same lines about what we could attract here and make work well for the Inland Empire. Well, Veronica and Mike, I want to thank you very much for being my guest today on Professionals of the Inland Empire. Thank you for your insights. It is something that we all have in common. We all have a home, or almost all of us have a home, and those who don't, need our help. So thank you again for being a guest on the show. That's it for now. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Professionals of the Inland Empire. This one will post on Friday morning. So long for now, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching or listening to, depending on the case, the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John W. Tulac. If you have a suggestion for a guest, email him at jwtulac, that's JWTULAC, @gmail.com. jwtulac @gmail.com.